Monster Evolution has too many abilities to bind to individual keys. The problem is that every button on my keyboard is used for something, with each weapon having its own keybind, and other buttons being used for communication, interactions, movement, and RPG actions. It's not possible to bind dedicated buttons to each skill. Most of the time I would end up browsing through each skill one by one. I wanted a faster way to access these skills, since accessing them during time-sensitive battles could make the difference between victory and defeat. Let's go over 2 scenarios. Scenario 1. Here I'm a high-level mechanic starting off in a new map. Here I'll juggle through various skills. The first skill is Metal Fission. This will allow me to consume metal for mana. By doing so, this will allow me to deploy the energy drone early. I've also noticed that I picked up the magic weapon. I would like to dispense that in the locker. Next, I would like to salvage this magic weapon for metal. And I'll get it back from the locker. Next, I'll melt each weapon for scrap metal. This map also contains a few empty turrets. Let's also salvage them for metal. And finally, I would like to pick up 1 sensor from metallurgy. Alright, while you're doing that, your team moved on and completed the first 3 objectives without you. Scenario 2. I'm a necromancer that's about to be placed under pressure from an ambush. First, I'm going to recall my minions for immediate reinforcements. Next, I'm looking for plagues so I can damage all nearby hostiles. Mind you, while this is going on, my hand is off the mouse since I'm hitting the next and back buttons to search for these skills. Now I'm looking for Decay to do more AoE damage. Next is Unnatural Shout for healing. Finally, I need to recover some of my lost skeletons. I'll summon another skeletal mage whenever I find that skill. Now let's redo these 2 scenarios, but this time with the skill menu. First up is the Mechanic and Toyline scenario. This menu might look familiar to you since it behaves very similar to the voice menu. Here I'm pressing B to toggle it. While the menu is visible, you'll see that each category or command is mapped to a number ranging from 0 to 9, just like the voice menu. With this menu, I now have access to any of my abilities in a few button presses. In this scenario, my team still moved on and completed the first 3 objectives without me. But, at least this was easier to work with. And now for the Necromancer under pressure scenario. First up, recalling my minions. Oops, I accidentally recalled them while they're preserved. There we go. Up next, Plague. And now for decay. Up next, summon a skeletal mage, though I'm struggling to pick which element I want. There we go. I also tried to summon another mage, even though I maxed out. And finally, summon Natural Shout for healing. As seen here, despite my mistakes and hesitation, I was still able to execute all commands matching the same time as the scenario without the skill menu. I wager I will perform even better if I combine the skill menu with the current system. The skill menu has multiple modes of operation. The default behavior is it'll activate the ability's primary use. So for Charge Field, for example, it'll deploy it. However, if I hold down the Alt key, it'll activate the ability's alternative use. So for example, in Charge Field, it'll toggle it instead of deploying it. Another mode is the Select mode. When I hold the Shift key down, I would end up selecting the ability instead of using it. This mode is useful for abilities where I need to interact with it multiple times. For example, Metal Fission. First, I'll browse to the desired metal, then use it multiple times depending on how much mana I want. I can also hold Control to pin the menu. This will prevent it from automatically closing after executing a command. In the ability settings, there's a checkbox to filter skills based on your character. If I check this on, it would only reveal skills that my character can use. If I check this off, it would reveal all skills relevant to my class. Although this would clutter the menu, this is more useful if you prefer to memorize key combinations. The rest of this video will be going over customizing the skill menu. This section is intended for advanced users, so it's okay if you skip the rest of this. The skill menu is configured through the user INI. To add data to the INI, enter the following console command. Add skill menu commands to INI. It will notify you that the skill command is saved to user.ini. By doing so, this will add defaults to the INI. Although this will allow you to customize it, this will also prevent you from receiving updates whenever the system changes. You probably don't want the defaults to overwrite your changes after all. If you wish to go back to defaults, simply deleting this whole section will restore it. So let's go over this. First off, the order of the items determine the order of the menu. For example, the healing skills appear in slot 1 because it appears earlier in this list. Each item contains a collection of properties. The first property is the class type. This will determine if the skill is relevant based on your current class. These are the valid types for this field. I should note that the any value will cause the skill to always appear regardless of the class. This is useful if the ability is shared among multiple classes, like Tainted Summons or Weapon Dispenser. The skill path determines how to navigate to this ability. This property is period delimited. If there's a period, this means the subsequent text will appear in a subcategory. For example, say if I don't want to navigate through Summons Necromancer to get to Zombie. I can delete that part from the path to move zombies to the root level. The skill path array is an internal variable to speed up performance. You can just ignore this. The next section is related to the actual commands. You have the primary command. This is the default command to execute. There is also a secondary command. This command is executed whenever the Alt key is held down. If the secondary command is empty, like you see in this example, it'll fall back to the primary command. And finally, you have the tertiary command. This command is executed whenever the Shift key is held down. You may also notice that each command has a prefix property. This is the text that appears in the menu depending on the keyboard state, such as when you hold down Shift or Alt. As the name implies, this text always appears before the name. These commands often reference the ability's internal name. If you need a reference to these names, you can find them in the same INI in the artifact order setting. Sometimes the internal name is very different from what is presented in-game. You can check the ability settings to see the technical name associated with each skill. Finally, the last property is the required inventory property. If your character has this item, then this skill will appear in the menu. This property is only relevant if you have the filter skill menu setting turned on. If this is empty, then this will not check if you have the skill or not, and it will always appear instead. There is also the required inventory class, but you can ignore that. Unreal saves the entire data struct to the INI, including internal variables. This variable is cached at runtime after dynamically loading the required inventory. So what can you do with this? A common and useful thing to do is to move your favorite abilities or time-sensitive abilities to the very top of the list for fast access. In this example, I'm going to add Enhanced Armor and Life Burst to the top for the Paladin. And for the support, I'll add Regroup Summons. For Necromancer, Regroup Minions and Preservation. And Berserker would have Cry of Repulsion. Instead of typing each line, it's easier to copy-paste an existing line and make edits to this line instead. So let's get started. Okay, here we are. I have added the abilities to the top of the list. We have Enhanced Armor, Life Burst. It's okay to have 2 regroup summons, because only one of these abilities will appear at a time because of this class type. So if you're playing a support, only this one would show up. If I'm playing as a Necromancer, this one would show up. Yeah, and that's about it for customizing it. One thing to keep in mind is the package name. Generally, the Mechanic and Necromancer will be found under the RPG expansion package, while the original 3 classes, the Paladin, Support, and Berserker, will be found in Monster Assault RPG. If this item is not found, what's going to happen is that it will keep the inventory class to be none, and if it's none, it's always going to show up regardless if you have the ability or not. Alright, so let's see how this works in game. I'm going to save this. Let's check it out. Alright, here I am in game as a Paladin. As you can see here, the 2 abilities I've added are at the top.
Adrenaline full.
When I enter as a support, the favorites category only shows the regrouping ability that I've added. Of course, I need to summon something first.
Adrenaline full. Adrenaline full.
Good doggy. And for the Necromancer. And this is how it appears for the Berserker.
Adrenaline full.
What else is a useful thing to do? What if I wanted some sort of panic button? This is a command I'll use in case of an emergency. Let's say I'm nearly dead as a paladin. I can press this button to activate a bunch of skills all at once. In this example, I'll bind the panic button to activate my personal medkit for rapid healing, spawn some medkits, cleanse for a bit of healing, sphere of regeneration for more healing, replenish for gradual healing, and I'll activate the enhanced armor to make myself invulnerable for a few seconds. But then also I'll select enhanced armor to allow me to deactivate it when needed. Being that this command will drain all of my mana, I will move this command to the bottom of the list. Let's get started. I also want to note that you can combine multiple commands together using this pipe character. This is the way to chain commands together. Okay, here we are. I've set this command to only appear when I'm playing as a paladin. And this here is the long chain, or long list of commands that are chained together. And it keeps going. Here's the select ability parts, so that I'll have enhanced armor selected by the time I finish processing this command. I didn't do anything for secondary or tertiary commands, primarily because this is a panic button. I don't think I'll be bothering Alt or Shift if I'm panicking. And I left required inventory empty, so this command always appears regardless what kind of skills I have in my possession. Here I am in game. My paladin is low on health right now. Let's test out this new panic button. Looks like everything is working. So the skill menu isn't exclusive to skills. In fact, it's an all-purpose command mapper. Any client console command can be bound to a key through this menu. So for example, if I wanted to bind the Unreal 2 reloading commands, I can. I can also bind speech commands too. Let's add one that'll report my health and another for my mana. Alright, here we are. I added two commands for reporting health and reporting mana. All it is just a say command. This text here would be broadcasted in game. Let's go take a step further. Let's say if I want my character to say something. So I can use the pipe command to add another one, and I can actually have them say the medic command. I recorded that to be number 30. Let's do it again for the reporting mana, and this one I'll do cover me. So when I report my mana, I'm going to say in text my mana is getting low. The lowercase m is my current mana, the uppercase is my maximum mana, and then my character will say cover me. Let's see how it looks in game. Alright, let's test this out. So let's see if I have my reloading command. Yep, there it goes. And let's try my speech command. I'm going to report my health. And he automatically says medic. And let's try mana.
Cover me.
It works. And that is all. I hope you'll find this new feature very valuable and make great use out of it. See you in game.